Back.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda, traveling circuses subject performing animals to extensive travel, which limits their movement and restricts natural behaviors. Introduction 1233A is sponsored by Council Member Rosie Mendez. She's been working on this bill for a long time. Glad that we're seeing it being voted on today. It prohibits the use of certain wild and exotic animals in circuses, including elephants, big cats, giraffes, apes, and bears. Just to know that we are voting on this bill today. We're also going to vote on a bill at a later time in July to extend the compliance period to allow circuses additional time to adjust their business model. And with that, I'd like to ask Councilmember Mendez to say a few words.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I am pleased to introduce and get this intro 1233 voted on today. I want to thank all of my colleagues, and I want to thank my 5 staff members through the 11 years who have worked on this bill: Lisa Kaplan, Janos Martin, Christopher Labarge, Jasmine Torres, and John Blasco, who's currently working with me, who helped me get this over the finish line. I want to thank John Phillips, my friend, my constituent, who has worked on this bill with me prior to me getting into the council and has trusted me to shepherd this bill through the council. I want to thank Christina Syringe from Animals Defenders International, who worked with me and my staff during the past few years on some of the language. David Seitzer from the Housing Committee. Ramon, I will thank you too. Thank you for everything. Councilmember Johnson, for your assistance and being the co-sponsor on this bill. It's taken a long time. We've made a lot of changes to the bill. So I want to thank the people who've supported it and the people who were opposed, because through that process, I think we've made this a better bill. I will also be introducing a pre-considered intro with other members that will change the implementation date of when this bill becomes effective. I think that it is correct to allow current businesses to adjust their business model in light of this legislation being passed. And I want to thank all my colleagues. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilmember.
For general orders discussions, beginning with Councilmember King.
Good afternoon, Madam Speaker and all. I just want to address us as a council. I know we're responsible for passing legislation that improves the quality of life in the city of New York. However, I am troubled and dismayed at one piece of legislation that we'll be voting on today. As a child, I've had the privilege of being able to attend the circus where I got to see acts, whether they were animals or humans who performed with unique abilities. I think that today we're getting ready to vote on a bill that may be somewhat discriminatory, because we have rules in place. If you violate those rules in the city of New York, when you provide a circus, you cannot do this, i.e. Ringling Brothers. So right now we have one circus that still exists, and that is the Universal Soul Circus that still exists, that's been performing across the United States for 25 years. And they have followed the rules. They have not broken any of the city rules. So I find it a little bit bizarre that this day and age that we'll create a rule that will eliminate them from coming to the city of New York and deliver the services that they've been delivering. In a progressive council, if we've always talked about being progressive, the Universal Soul Circus is the only black-owned, minority-owned circus in the United States of America, and we get ready to shut them out of New York City with Intro Bill 1233. I don't think it's fair. I don't think it's right, and I really hope that we reconsider when we vote today to give our children an opportunity to enjoy some experiences that we enjoyed as children when we went to the circuses. And remember, again, if we're ones that promote businesses, we know in communities of color where the Universal Soul goes, there are jobs that get created, there are entertainment that's duly noted, and it has an impact on the boroughs of the Bronx, Queens, and Brooklyn. So I ask us all to reconsider when we take our vote today, to be real careful what we're getting ready to do, because what will be next? They talk about mistreating animals in the circus. There's no proof that the Universal Soul Circus has ever done this. And then if we're talking about mistreatment of animals, we all have had to correct our own animals at home to discipline them. And if we're going to do that, do we get rid of our own pets? If adults
Quiet.
abuse, If
Quiet
adults abuse
in
our
the
children,
balcony.
do we
Thank
get rid of all of our children? No, we don't. So if someone's following the rules, why do we create new rules to get rid of them? So I'm saying we should be really paying attention to what's going on right here and not play politics and do the right thing. And I ask everyone not to vote for Intro 1233. Thank you.
Councilmember Johnson.
Madam Public Advocate, I'll wait for the roll call instead of speaking now. Sorry about that.
Thank you. Councilmember Dromm.
Thank you. I just want to make reference to the report from the Council, from the committee, found that traveling circuses are detrimental to animal welfare due to the adverse effects of frequent transport, extended periods of confinement, and physically abusive training techniques. The extended period of time in vehicles and temporary facilities utilized by the circus industry restrict natural behaviors and cause animals to suffer and be prone to health, behavior, and psychological problems. Tricks that exotic and wild animals are forced to perform require extreme physical coercion techniques, including the restriction of food, the use of bull hooks, and which is a heavy bar with sharpened point and a hook, electrical shocks, metal bars, whips, and other forms of physical abuse. That's why today I urge my colleagues to vote in favor of this legislation.
Councilmember Miller.
Thank you, Madam Public Advocate. I also want to talk about Intro 1233. While I'm sure that my colleagues who support this legislation do so with the best of intentions, but what I'd like to talk about are the unintended consequences. And in particular, I'd like to talk about one great example, which is the Universal Circus, which for nearly 25 years have served, which is an African-American owned business, and a traveling circus, which is for more than 25 years, for nearly 25 years, have served community, not just communities of color, but communities throughout the city with circus performers from throughout the world. In particular, we have welcomed them in the Southeast Queens, in particular Southern Queens Park, which is ran by the city, which depends on these resources that come in. They are the #1 generator of revenue for the Southern Queens Park Association. The partnership that we have is with not-for-profits, community-based organizations. In fact, this past April, we brought in nearly 3,000 families from New York City shelters, which enjoyed a full day at the circus, which enjoyed days with the performers, the animals. We fed them and everything. So while we should have learned from our experience with the horse carriage debate whether or not to consider these type of consequences, but to be able to get better to resolve these, and instead of simply imposing bans, we should be working on how to find solutions that will keep these men and women employed and keep these animals safe. Intro 1233 does not allow for any middle ground and takes advantage of small minority-owned businesses that is only looking to continue to contribute to communities and society as they have done in the past. I will be voting no and ask my colleagues to do the same.
Coupled on general orders, and I ask for a roll call vote on all general orders.
Quiet in the chambers for a roll call
On all
vote.
items coupled on the general orders calendar.
Barron.
I vote aye on all with the exception of 1233A, on which I'm voting no.
Borelli.
Aye on all except 1531, 1541, 1561, 1576, 1581, and 1233A. Thanks.
Chin.
Permission to explain my vote?
Yes.
I just wanted to congratulate all my colleagues on their hard work on all their important legislation, and especially to my sister, Councilmember Rosie Mendez, on Intro 1233A. She has worked so hard on it, and congratulations. I'm proud to vote aye on all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Constantinides.
Aye on all.
Cornegie.
Madam Public Advocate, permission to explain my vote, please.
Yes, sir.
So while I'm grateful to the sponsor, Rosie Mendez, of today's bill, as well as to the Speaker for recognizing the concerns that many of us have raised and the stakeholders regarding the implementation date and the concern for the implementation date as it relates to the Universal Soul Circus. I look forward to supporting this bill as well as the upcoming amendment that we've discussed. Aye on all.
Thank you.
Dromm.
Permission to disclaim my vote?
Yes, Councilmember.
Again, I'd like to congratulate all the sponsors on today's legislation, especially Councilmember Rosie Mendez on her great victory for animal rights.
Councilmember Rosie Mendez for her hard work on Intro 1233, and I hear many of the concerns. I am a sponsor of the legislation, and certainly I appreciate the efforts and the consideration for delaying the implementation. We know that with anything we do, there are always unintended consequences that are, unpreventable at times, but certainly representing many of those employees that are impacted by any work we do, particularly employees of color, it's always very concerning to allow individuals to be out of jobs, and that is very concerning for me. But I do understand the overall message and all of the work that's been put into Intro 1233, and that is why I am a sponsor and I do support it. And I want to thank Councilmember Mendez and all the advocates for their hard work. Nothing we do in this council is always about the bottom line and about common beliefs and common priorities, and I truly believe at the end of the day that it is passing for the right reasons. So I look forward to the amendment next month. I look forward to delaying the implementation so that we can allow all those parties the proper amendments so their industries can be adjusted as well, so business either can maintain or can be changed. So with that, congratulations to all of my colleagues, and I vote aye on all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Johnson.
Permission to explain my vote?
Yes.
I am pleased that the council is voting on the bill to prohibit exotic animals at circuses today. I fully support the amendment we'll be passing next month to allow additional time for compliance.
Miller.
I'll be voting aye on all except for 1233A.
Thank you. Thank you. Next.
Perkins.
Aye on all, including 1233A.
Thank you.
Richards.
I vote aye with the understanding that implementation will be delayed. So vote aye.
Thank you.
Rodriguez.
Congratulations to my colleague Mendez, all the advocates group. You being a champion not only in this bill, but also animal rights. And as a father of two daughters, I want to be sure that my daughter have been born and raised, knowing that animals have feelings too. And thank you, the speaker, for helping to get a compromise. And with that, I vote aye.
Thank you.
Rose.
Aye on all except 1233A.
Rosenthal.
West Side alive. And finally, with admiration to Council Members Barron and Mendez, I'm so proud to both sponsor and support Intro 1233. Congratulations to all, in particular to John Phillips, who knows how to hang in there for an issue that matters. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Cabrera.
Aye on all, and I'd like to congratulate Rosie Mendez for your advocacy and leadership on 1233, and John Phillips, you waited 11 years. That's a long time, but today it has become a reality, and of course to Ali, and with that I vote aye on all.
Thank you.
I want to thank the Speaker and Councilmember Mendez for their openness to compromise. I know within the BLAC, opinion about the merits of the bill did vary. Some members were supportive on principle, some were against, but there was broad agreement in favor of an amendment delaying the implementation to allow for an orderly transition, and I'm fully supportive of that compromise. So with that said, I vote aye on all.
Thank you.
Williams.
When it comes to 1233, this really wasn't a hard thought process for me. I do care about jobs very much. When I was younger, stopped eating meat because I didn't like the way they were killing animals. I'm now a pescatarian. I stopped going to circuses in my late teens, early 20s because of the way I learned animals were being abused at those circuses. So this, to me, was just a continuation of what I've always believed. And so I fully support 1233 and congratulate Councilman Mendez on the work that she's doing. And I appreciate her willingness to make sure there was an easy transition by supporting the amendments that we're going to make sure this council comes on, so there's an easy transition in the implementation stage. So that people are not unduly hurt. we can't just sit by and say that animals can be hurt and that's just okay. And so I appreciate her thoughtfulness and the discussion that occurred in this body. With that, I'm proud to vote aye on all.
Thank you. I thank all of the advocates and all of those who were in the balcony. Thank you for following the instructions. I really appreciate it. Thank you for engaging in democracy. As we await the vote. All items on today's general order calendar were adopted by a vote of 49 in the affirmative, 0 negative, and 0 abstentions, with the exception of Intro 1541A, which was adopted by a vote of 46 in the affirmative, 3 negative, and 0 abstentions, and Intro 1531A, which was adopted by a vote of 47 in the affirmative, 2 negative, and 0 abstentions, and Intro 1561, which was adopted by a vote of 47 in the affirmative, 2 negative, and 0 abstentions, and Intro 1576A, which was adopted by a vote of 47 in the affirmative, 2 negative, and 0 abstentions, and Intro 1581A, which was adopted by a vote of 47 in the affirmative, 2 negative, and 0 abstentions, and Intro 1233A, which was adopted by a vote of 43 affirmative, 6 negative, and 0 abstentions, and the revised, I'm not finished. The revised land use call-up vote is 49 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative. Let it rip, go.